Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar on regaining lost ground for next school year. My name is Tabitha and I'm here with my co-host Ruth. Today we are going to be focusing our discussion on setting effective instructional priorities for next school year. Before we get started, I just wanted to go over a few housekeeping details for the webinar. Everybody has been muted upon entry and will remain muted through the entire presentation. If you have any questions during the presentation, you may chat those into the chat window, and we will reserve time at the end of the presentation to answer them. Our agenda for today will discuss district challenges and solutions for the upcoming school year. We'll be discussing effective data-informed instruction strategies using our RightPath offerings. We'll take a look at a few of our RightPath offerings, such as benchmarks, instructional reports, remediation lessons, and RTI tracking and management. To close off our discussion, we will take a quick look at a successful district case study.
RightPath is made up of 4 major components, with each of our components focusing on teacher and student success. Our data-informed instruction component includes multiple ways to assess students and powerful instructional reports that can be used to drive instruction in the classroom. The instructional planning component allows you to create district curriculum plans and share those with your teachers to use as their daily lesson plans. The learning resources and programs is our pre-built curriculum and lessons that are utilized in educational programs like credit recovery, Regents Prep, and alternative education. These lessons are also used in conjunction with the instructional reports as we drive that instruction from those reports to the online lessons. The last component is the professional performance piece that contains the district's principal and teacher observation rubrics and scoring for APPR reporting. Today we're going to focus on our data module and our learning resources module. Right Reason Technologies has been in the distance education field for almost 20 years. We are a team of educators who are devoted to teacher and student success. Our success platform is called RightPath. There are many educational studies discussing the reality of summer learning loss. What we are only beginning to understand is the lasting impact COVID-19 closures will leave on this generation of K-8 learners. At these grade levels, students learn and refine critical skills that set the foundation for their academic success. With schools losing their entire last quarter of instruction, the need for hastily implemented e-learning, and easing of grade level promotional requirements, there is the potential that the impact of COVID will impact learners for years to come. Many districts are faced with a challenge. How can we regain some of the learning lost from the closure, and how can we identify the needs of each student when they return? Summer learning loss, or the summer slide, is the tendency for students, especially those from low-income families, to lose some of the achievement gains they made during the previous school year. And each fall when the students return, the teachers are all but too familiar with the students coming back with anywhere from 1 to 2 months of reading skills lost, up to a year of math skills lost, and spending 4 to 6 weeks reteaching the material from the previous year. So many are asking, is there going to be a COVID slide? So adding on to the typical summer slide, the COVID slide is going to be a loss of learning from March through September. With schools closed in mid-March, all the states have been affected with these closures from now until the remainder of the school year. All districts had to switch to an online learning platform, something they've never done before, and they needed to quickly get one in place, even with an issue of lack of technology in homes. And many districts began with remediation based on their state guidelines. So no new content was actually taught for almost a month of the first month of the closures. And here are just two of the many quotes out there available on summer learning loss. So from the Colorado Department of Education, summer slide is cumulative, with these learning losses building up each summer. So it's so important to be able to alleviate some of that learning loss every year so it doesn't build up and affect them as they get into secondary grades. And the impact of the summer slide contributes to a more pronounced achievement gap, from an EdSurge article from July of 2018.
RightPath offers a solution for this. Using our RightPath benchmarks and our data reports, you can develop an effective data-informed instruction remediation plan to help identify and close those student learning gaps. There are 3 steps to effective data-informed instruction. You're going to assess your students, analyze their results from the assessment, and then you're going to create an action plan. We'll go over these 3 areas in detail. Our first step is to assess students using periodic assessments. These assessments are essential in providing teachers and students with rigorous teaching and learning. Looking at the results on a regular basis provides feedback to help teachers improve teaching throughout the school year rather than waiting for the results of an end-of-year test. Students will take high-stake assessments. At the primary level, this may be a district or state exam. In order to help students succeed on these tests, it's important for assessments to be aligned to those tests in format, content, standard, and length. These assessments should be aligned to the school's defined grade level and content expectations so teachers are teaching what will be assessed. RightPath offers a few different assessment options depending on the grade level. We have rigorous and reliable NYSET approved benchmarks for grades K through 8 that are closely aligned to the New York State assessments. Since we do not know where education will be taking place for this upcoming school year, RightPath has the ability to administer our benchmark assessments online or paper pencil. We offer 2 different books inclusive of multiple choice and extended response questions for grades 3 through 8 in both math and ELA. Today we will be focusing more on the elementary middle school level, but RightPath does offer Regents diagnostics for high school levels in all core subject areas. These tests allow for a more focused remediation in areas of deficiency. RightPath benchmarks can be administered online, which is recommended for immediate results, or they can be administered on paper pencil using our bubble sheets. ELA benchmarks typically have 30 questions. Math has about 35 questions. If students take the assessment online, they will see 1 question at a time, just like you see on the screen, and as they move from question to question, their answers will be saved. This is a sample timeline that one of our partner districts used. This can be used as is or modified to fit your district better. Typically, we recommend starting off the school year with a fall benchmark that can either test previous grade level or current grade level. Many of our partner districts like to start off the year with the previous grade level benchmark to find those gaps from the previous school year. After the students take the assessment, the teacher will identify instructional gaps using RightPath reports, which we'll go over in just a few. Teachers can then begin their instructional planning to align to student needs. AIS and RTI instruction will begin in the fall. Following the fall remediation, we recommend students to take a winter benchmark. During this time, we will identify instructional gaps and standards that students need to be retaught, as well as look for student mastery. We then can analyze student growth from the fall. For winter remediation, AIS or RTI instruction will continue, aligning to students' needs in order to help students prepare for the upcoming state assessments. In the spring, the last benchmark will be given. Teachers can identify instructional successes and gaps. They can use this data to finish the school year strong, plan and align for summer learning, and for the following school year.
Step 2 is to analyze the results from the assessments and to begin to take a deeper look at the standards and results. One of the most important pieces of data analysis is to have user-friendly reports for teachers and administrators. They need to be able to run these reports quickly and be able to analyze and understand the reports to be able to affect change. There's many systems that have many different reports. Really, the most typical reports and the most important reports are those that are going to address the standards. So a standards report, a whole class report, individual student reports, and a question level report. If assessment results are not turned around in a timely manner, they can't be effective. Schools need to put systems into place to make sure that insights learned from data analysis are put into practice quickly. We work with our districts to design their calendars such that the assessments and scoring are planned and a PD is scheduled within days of the data results being available. A key component of effective data analysis is the analysis meetings. These meetings are between teachers and instructional leaders that focus on the results of interim assessments. These data discussions are critical to changing a school's culture from one in which the focus is on what is taught to what students have actually learned. Conducting both one-on-one and group meetings can be effective. Group meetings allow teachers to share best practices, while individual meetings let teachers focus on their own unique needs. I'm going to take a few minutes to share with you some reports that are available in the RightPath Student Success System and how they are used in data meetings and action plans. The main report that you would utilize in the credit recovery program from the RightPath instructional reports is the individual learning plan. The individual learning plan is going to outline the learning gaps for each student based on that diagnostic assessment that they took. If they received a question wrong on a particular standard, it will show up on their individual learning plan. These individual learning plans can be assigned to the students for their own personalized path to mastery. The report that you see here is our ID chart, or the performance by standard chart. And what this is going to do is highlight the top missed standards on the diagnostic assessment based off of the number of incorrect responses. This report can be run at the building, class, or even the student individual level. So what it does is it helps to prioritize their individual learning plans at the student level. And let me just describe a little bit of what you're seeing here. So your top missed standards are going to be on the left, and it's going to decrease as you go through. What we're looking at is a school level or a building level report. So there was a lot of students that took this particular assessment. So each of the number of incorrect responses is found above the bar chart in this list. And then you'll see that there's an arc with percents. That percent represents the percent of the incorrect responses on that assessment. So ideally, if you were able to fully remediate that red bar, create equations and inequalities, that standard accounts for 12% of the incorrect responses on the assessment. And that arc is cumulative. So if you were able to remediate the red and yellow section, that accounts for almost 21% of the incorrect responses. So all 6 standards that you're seeing listed here account for almost 44% of the incorrect responses on the assessment. The other thing about our reports is any of our reports in our system are going to be clickable to find lessons to meet those standards. What you're seeing here is one of our RightPath instructional reports called the small group plan. So it looks very similar to your individual plan, except it's going to chunk the students into small groups for tier 2 or 3 instructions. And this is done automatically from the assessment results based on who responded incorrectly to a particular standard. And again, all of the reports are clickable. So in this report, you would actually click the standard code and you would be brought directly to lessons that meet that particular standard. We are also launching a brand new data center insights next school year. So I just wanted to include a few of those reports. So what you're seeing here is the proficiency by cohort. So this is if you're going to be comparing tests from the same groupings. So we have a pre-test and a mid-test that you have here, and you can see that in the pre-test there was 13 level 1s, and then for those 13 level 1s, you can see their movement in the mid-year test to levels 2, 3, and 4. And then also down below on this chart, you would also see the students' names and their individual scores for each of the exams in that grouping.
The third and final step is to develop an action plan. After implementing assessments and conducting a deep analysis of student results, you're going to want to take action to address students' strengths and, most importantly, their weaknesses. Using the data from the assessment to drive instruction in the classroom is crucial to develop and implement an effective action plan. Based on the results, which standards need to be taught to the whole class, you'll want to analyze why the students didn't learn it. And finally, in your instructional plan, what techniques will you use to address these standards? A few strategies to use when implementing your action plan is to create clear objectives. Teachers should use the assessment results to focus their lesson objectives in the areas that need student improvement. At the start of the class, you can take a quick 5 to 10 minutes to review the standards that are outlined in your action plan that may require a little bit more attention. When targeting certain student groups in the class with specific needs, differentiation can be a good strategy to work with those groups while others work independently. Constantly checking for understanding is an effective way for teachers to see if the action plan is achieving its results. An example of this would be to have all students write their answers on whiteboards and hold it up to show if they're understanding. You can use the results from the assessment to track and monitor students receiving AIS or RTI services. The small group report can be used to identify students that need pull-out interventions, and teachers can really focus on individualized instruction to increase time on task. In addition to all the instructional reports RightPath offers, we also have a student performance profile showing longitudinal achievement for state assessments, benchmarks, or other third-party assessments. The student performance profile can be used for district-wide tier management, tracking interventions, management, and reporting. This is the student performance profile in RightPath. It can be used as a part of the action plan to enroll, track, and manage your RTI process. This screen has the ability to show and hide specific criteria. For example, I am filtered to show state exam results and benchmark results, as well as RTI tiers and services. This page can be filtered by school year, building level, teacher, class, and/or student level. If we are provided with previous school year data, you will be able to view data from previous school years at the individual student level. By simply clicking on the current school year, you can track and manage students' RTI tiers. Using the simple drop-down next to each subject area, you will be able to select the tier that the student should receive. As we scroll down, you will see a section for IST files. This is where you will be able to upload files pertaining to that particular student relating to your IST team meetings. The last section on this page is the intervention section. Clicking on the Add button will allow you to begin populating interventions for that student in each area. For example, RTI Math, push in 1 time a week for 40 minutes. RightPath has response to intervention lessons for elementary students in grades 1 through 8, with the core focus of those lessons being in grades 3 through 8 for ELA and math. These lessons are targeted standard-specific lessons. They can be searched by the state standard or by the Common Core standard. They can also be accessed using the report links we discussed earlier. The components included in these lessons are a jump start, allowing the student to let the teacher know what they already know about a particular topic, some skill builder questions for the teacher to see if the student understands those building block skills, a visual model, which is displayed here on the right, which is the basic learning component that they will need to understand in order to complete the lesson. And then each lesson contains a guided and independent practice section with questions as well as a reflection.
Now we're going to take a look at a RightPath program in action. Here we have a case study of one of our partner districts who had a challenge of improving their results on the New York State assessments in their grades 4 through 6 building. This building had been identified as a school in need of improvement. With only 2 months to the state assessments, we began this initiative with the district in February, and wait until you see the results. Using RightPath, they were able to take a 2-prong approach at increasing their test scores. The first approach was to take a look at longitudinal data analysis. We were able to take a look at multiple years of state results, RightPath benchmark reports, and identify commonly missed standards and conduct grade level meetings and PD with the instructional coaches, principals, and the teachers. Through those commonly missed standards, they were able to start remediating in their classrooms and their AIS classes. Instructional priorities were set for remediation, and they were able to utilize the RightPath RTI lessons for all of their students. They began reteaching and spiraling in those priority standards to get increased time on task. The district created their remediation plan. They identified specific groups and individual students to begin setting those instructional priorities, using the individual learning plans from RightPath and the small group plans, and increasing that time on task for those priority standards. Working hand in hand with instructional leaders and coaches and teachers to make a turnkey approach in the instructional priorities. The teachers in their regular classrooms began looking at the whole group plan priorities, reteaching and spiraling in, and again, increasing that time on task for those priority standards. Now to take a look at the results and the growth of this remediation initiative, we took a look at the comparison of the 2018 state assessment scores and the 2019 assessment scores. By setting those instructional priorities, working with students on their individual learning plans, targeting AIS instruction to the focus standards, and spiraling in and reteaching those topics in the regular classrooms, there was a significant increase in almost every grade level. There was a significant increase in proficiency in almost every grade level and subject in grades 4 through 6. And here I've pulled some of the proficiency reports from RightPath so you could see that proficiency growth. On the right, you can see that in 2018, in grade 4 ELA, there was 24% of the students proficient in levels 3 and 4. And then in the 2019 assessments, there was 33% proficient in levels 3 and 4. And now let's take a look at the grade 4 math results. So as you can see, in 2018, there was a 13% proficiency in levels 3 and 4 on the math assessments. The 2019 results show a 21% proficiency for levels 3 and 4. Making a change. How are you planning to identify student learning gaps in September? And what are you doing to set effective instructional priorities for next year? If you're not sure what you're going to do, give us a call and we'll help you get on the right path to student success.
If you are interested in learning more about RightPath or implementing a program for this summer or for this upcoming school year, please contact Dr. Watson, whose information can be found at the bottom of the screen. At this time, if you have any questions, please feel free to type those into the chat window. And we would like to thank everyone for attending today's webinar.